I'm going to run through real quick some background and a little data on Irrigator Pro, and Dr. Butts is going to talk about some of the work that he's doing on the advancements in Irrigator Pro that we are working on right now. Irrigator Pro was developed in the 1980s by Jim Davidson. Many of y'all remember him. The old Barbara Mandrell song, "I Was Country When Country Wasn't Cool." Jim started working on computer scheduling for irrigation when that wasn't cool as well, and it's developed over the years in the Irrigator Pro for peanuts. At request of the Georgia Cotton Commission, we also expanded it into a model for cotton and then into corn, mainly because any system that you're irrigating peanuts on, chances are you're also rotating in cotton and corn with that system. And we work with UGA on the Irrigator Pro for cotton and corn, Dr. Craig Bednard specifically. Real quick rundown on some of the yields, and this is a long-term data set that we have on yields. You can see that the red bar is irrigated. Over a 13-14 year period, we averaged about 5,900 pounds compared to dry land at about 2,900 pounds on peanuts. Cotton, on a little bit of a shorter period than the one on peanuts, averaged roughly 1,400 pounds the lint yield, irrigated with Irrigator Pro, and about 750 or so pounds on non-irrigated. And then on cotton, the average was roughly 224 bushels to the acre irrigated, and then on non-irrigated, of course, you can see 65 bushels. And that 65 bushels was also coupled with several years that we hardly got any yield at all on non-irrigated corn. We just know how that works. So the yields have been really held up quite well with Irrigator Pro over a large number of years on this data set. But this is one thing I did want to talk to y'all about. At this same farm, we do a lot of crop rotation research, looking at different systems of crop rotation among crops and years out of peanuts. And the point here is it's not a talk about crop rotation, but if you don't have a good rotation, you cannot maximize the efficiency of, or the water use efficiency of irrigation, because you're going to be yield limited because of the rotation. In the last several years in the United States, we've seen acreages in peanuts higher than our long-term averages, and that can be cutting into our crop rotations. So if you want to maximize the benefit of your irrigation, we need to be out in this 2-year out to 3-year out rotation periods. And as you can see, irrigated yields here on a 3-year out rotation, roughly a 2,500 pound yield advantage over non-irrigated. If we go down to a 2-year out rotation, we're looking at roughly a 1,950 pound yield benefit of irrigation over non-irrigated. A 1-year out rotation would be about a 1,200 pound benefit, and then continuous peanuts well less than 1,000. And highest water use efficiency would occur in this area. Dr. Validas mentioned that earlier. And you can see how it would step down over time. So if you're going to maximize your irrigation benefit, we need to also keep really good crop rotations involved as well. So that's the quick part I wanted to cover, and Dr. Butts will take over now. But before we do that, I want to mention one thing that the industry is very, very involved in, and that is the sustainability movement in peanuts. Peanuts are by far the most sustainable nut protein available, especially from a water standpoint when we're compared to almonds, walnuts, and pistachios. And as a result of that, a lot of the major manufacturers, but more importantly, the major retailers like Walmart's and others, are looking at how sustainable the products are that are on their shelves. And that is critically important for us as an industry to get the data, to position ourselves, and to say, yes, we are the most sustainable nut protein, and to be able to maintain that and use it as an advertising tool. Now, with that, there's some initiatives started in peanuts that are going to start this year. One is being conducted by the University of Georgia. Dr. Porter did a study with the Georgia Cotton Commission. We're now moving that into peanuts. And a young lady right here, Emily Braswell, if you would stand up and wave, is going to be doing a survey with the University of Georgia. If y'all want to participate in this, and it's not a lot of data, okay? It can be done quickly. Contact Emily. Also, is Casey here? Casey Cox with the Flint River Soil and Water Conservation District will be running a parallel effort with this. And it is all a way that we can gather data to demonstrate the benefits from a sustainability aspect for the United States peanut industry. It's completely confidential, but we need good data. So please contact one of these ladies, or if you are contacted by them, please participate in them, because it will definitely help us with peanuts in the marketplace. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Chris to talk about the advancements in Irrigator Pro.
All right, thank you. What I want to do is just kind of run through some screenshots on our newest version of Irrigator Pro. As Marshall said, Irrigator Pro started out with peanuts, so most of the screenshots I'll show will be related to peanut crop, but as it says, it's a program that we can, as we've updated, we've used, for peanuts, we've used water, rainfall, irrigation checkbook, plus the addition of max-min soil temperatures to schedule irrigation for peanuts. Cotton and corn have always used soil water potential as their triggers for irrigation. So with this new version, those were actually 3 separate programs that you had to load onto your desktop computer or laptop, and what we've done is we've converted this all to a web-based application, and it is sort of one-stop shopping for all 3 crops. We know that you rotate crops into a field, and you don't want to have to put that field data in every year, so we've kind of consolidated all of that. You go to a website called irrigatorpro.org, and if you're not already a user, you have to register as a user, which basically your email and a password, and get going. But the way it's set up, it's relatively simple for us. If we have data for a new crop, such as sesame or tomatoes or sweet corn or whatever, we could add that relatively quickly, for some testing and beta testing to help schedule additional crops. When you log in, the first thing you see is for all your fields, you will see this daily report. That is the default screen that you go to, and it's going to give you a summary of all your fields as to whether you need to irrigate or irrigate tomorrow or irrigate in 3 days. This particular screenshot, if it under the status, you see a blank. That means it's more than 7 days out before you need to irrigate. And so on, it's showing our corn, our cotton, and our peanuts for all these for dates. It also tells us that in the case of peanuts, we can have either soil temperature triggering whether we need to irrigate, or it can whether the available water or a combination of available water and temperature is triggering and telling us whether to irrigate. The other thing this screen shows is it shows our cumulative rainfall and irrigation, and then it tells us what our last event was, or last bit of data that we have in the data file. Of course, you go through and everything you have to set up is, you've got to set the fields and farms and all that kind of stuff up in there so that we can operate. So you go through and you set up individual farms. You can actually have who the owner is, and then you can also have additional authorized users that can look at that data. So you may want to have, if you're a consultant, or you may set up as the owner of this field or farm, but then you allow the individual growers who are paying you for that particular farm access to the data, and then you can send alerts to that grower or his irrigation manager for that particular field, whether he needs to irrigate or not. You go in, and then under each farm you have different fields, and this was our Hooks-Hanner just research plot. So we've got 12 12 plots in this particular field, and we named them as a different field. We also have the capability, in case of working with George Velitis and the Smart Sensor Array, this has the capability of using this as a zone, control zone, so you could have a set of sensors or set it up as a separate field, and it would trigger those zones whether or not to irrigate those zones or not. Next, in each field you have to set up a crop, and so year to year you may have, say, 2016 peanut. You go through and identify, and you just select that it's going to be in the Hooks-Hanner East 1, East 2, and East 3 fields. If I had cotton, that would be in the West 1, West 2, and West 3. So you go through, and for each year now I don't have to set up that field again by telling it the soil type, the number of acres, the amount of maximum amount of irrigation that I can put on without runoff. And so you go through and this eliminates your dated or year-to-year maintenance that you have to look at. We also have what's called a water register, so that for each field you can look at details if that's what you want to do. You can go through and it automatically comes up with the current date. In the middle of your screen, I couldn't show the whole screen, but the middle of your screen is going to be the current day, and then it's going to show 7 days in the past and 7 days in the future, so that when you're looking at it, you can tell whether or not you're going to have to irrigate that field sometime within the next week. It tells us what stage of development that we're in, pot addition and development. You can see that it was telling us back here, irrigating 4 days, irrigating 3 days, irrigate tomorrow, and then finally it says that based on the available water content, it dropped below, was less than or equal to 0. So then it's saying we need to irrigate. You can see that we irrigated about 9/10 of an inch, and so then that gets put in, and then your status starts over again. It's using, if you look at the data here, we are getting data from UGA with their Smart Sensor Array database. It automatically imports that in. If you set it up, you tell it what the radio IDs are, and it's been a pleasure to work with George and his group and getting this stuff to import directly on a daily basis. You also have the opportunity that if you had, say, the manual soil thermometers in there as opposed to using the thermocouples that are on the Smart Sensor Array, and you have maybe more confidence in that max-min soil thermometer, you can actually go in and add data, or you can add actual rainfall here. So we set this program up to use either automated data population, or in the case of many crop consultants and growers, it's all manual data entry. So it accommodates automatic, semi-automatic, or manual entry, kind of like a good gun. So we can send out notifications via email right now. The newest version will send out text messages, but right now we're using email, and it's user selectable. So you can select the recommendation level. In other words, I maybe as the owner of the farm or overall manager, I might want to see all the recommendations for all fields. I might want to only send just irrigate today, my decisions or recommendations to irrigate today to my irrigation managers. If I've got 2 or 3 of those guys out there that are running my irrigation systems, I can send recommendations to them that says just irrigate today, and it only sends data for those fields to those particular individuals. So you can set up your recipients on a field by field basis within this system to send out this email. Our funding support over the years early on was USDA, ARS with Jim Davison in the early days, and the Georgia Peanut Commission was instrumental in providing some funding support back in the 80s and 90s throughout getting the initial versions of this software up and going. The Peanut Foundation and then NRCS has been instrumental recently, and then most recently the Flint River Partnership, or Flint River Soil and Water Conservation District, with Casey Cox and that group. Again, the place to find it is irrigatorpro.org. So if you have any questions, our booth is right outside the auditorium here, and I'll be around to answer any questions that you might have. So, thank you.
Have any questions from either one of the guys from the Peanut Lab before we end the session? Calvin.
Chris, is there going to be an app version of that? Smartphone app?
The question is there going to be a smartphone or app version of this? Yes, there is. That's currently under development. We're waiting, actually they're waiting on me to give them some information back, but the idea is that it's going to tie into the smart sensor arrays where the phone will go out there, and you won't have to have a base station in the field. Is that the smartphone will go out and you have a box that you plug up to it in your car or truck. You activate the app, it wakes up the network that's in the field, downloads the data. If you have cell phone service, it uploads it to the server, and then Irrigator Pro is always running, so that when it gets new data, it will run and then automatically send back the recommendation to you while you're standing in the field, and that's the goal and what we're planning on doing now. Thanks for that question, Calvin.